Hey everybody, Matt with Freestand here. Got a special guest on the show today, Bisma Anwar. She is a mental health counselor, licensed therapist, coming to us from New York City, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey,
So thank you for coming on. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me. I love, being talking about my work and like what I do and all that. So this is a great opportunity. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we can just dive right into it. So Bisma is like I said, a mental health counselor, licensed therapist. She does three different things, and make sure I get them right. But she has her own private practice. She works on Talkspace, which for those who don't know is the online telehealth platform that connects patients seeking therapy to therapists online. And then she also works with the outpatient center at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. Right?
Yep.
Cool. Just wanted to make sure I got that right. As like a little introduction. So if you could first explain kind of what got you interested in therapy and kind of your process to becoming a therapist in the first place, I think that'd be a great place to start.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think, being from the Muslim community and like a lot of other minority groups and, cultures where it's very stigmatized, to talk about mental health, to have any kind of awareness, to get the help that you need. People are very resistant to it. People are likely to suffer in silence, rather than get help. And so I saw that, a lot of that in the community. And I always felt like there was a need for this to be, mainly like they just find it easier to talk to someone who looks like them. I mean, that's why
Right.
we have such a push for, BIPOC, uh, more in this field, really, because it's like more and more people, as their needs for mental health services are there's not enough providers. And so I think that that has been something that has kind of been always constant for me, this sense of awareness that, this is something that's really important and I really want to do this. And other than just my own personal interest, like doing it for the community. So that has sort of propelled where I've kind of landed with everything that I do. And it's sort of like something that's always kind of been at the back of my mind. I think that working in New York City is amazing because you work with such a diverse group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to like talk to people from all different kinds of backgrounds and learning about them. I also just like love getting to know people. I love to hear their life stories, and I love to like sort of be that person who can like provide them with that support to help them get to some place. So
That's awesome. So do you think that you got pushback yourself from people in the Muslim community to become a therapist since it's considered something that's, maybe that, they don't talk about as much?
I mean, I wouldn't say pushback, but it's a little bit like, in the beginning it was like, oh yeah, you're going to work with the crazy people, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where, it was just like very, yeah, okay, you do that. I think that reason why you'll find more women as opposed to men, because not a lot of you won't find any Muslim therapists if you go looking for them. I personally know very, very few. And I think it also speaks to how it's not really like, it's not one of those professions like South Asians and like Muslims. They always like push, I think especially the men, there's a lot of pressure to be like doctors and
Right.
engineers, like something in the healthcare industry. And even though therapy is related to that, it still like doesn't seem to be enough, to propel that. But I think slowly but surely we are gaining some traction, I would say, especially with the Muslim community.
Good. Um, and so you went to college and then you graduated, and then did you work kind of in like a community setting first before you started your private practice and started working on Talkspace?
Yeah, so when I graduated, my first job was a very like small, South Asian based, community center. And so a lot of it was me, providing education to people around mental health and mental illness. So I did a lot of that, mental health literacy and psychoeducation. workshops and things like that. And then I had actually interned at Mount Sinai when I was a student. So I knew I always wanted to go back and work there, and so I think like a little over a year in, I got the opportunity to start working there, and it's been 6 years actually since I've
Wow,
been there. Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah,
And you said it was a South Asian community. So was it specifically? It was specifically a center to help people from South Asia.
yeah, it
Oh
was.
wow.
So, yeah, so like the countries that include that would be like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, so mainly because of the languages too. My family's from Pakistan, so I speak Urdu fluently.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lot of people, like we had some Indians, we had some Bengalis part of the staff to just help. A lot of that community was really like the immigrant community that had just, some of them had just moved there, some of them didn't know the language. We had a lot of seniors who were like older and isolated in their homes. And so there was just, it was really great. It was a great experience for me, and I liked it. But I know that I wanted to do more like clinical work, and so that
Mm-hmm.
kind of what changed things for me, in that sense, to like move into working at Mount Sinai again.
Got it. And what was the main difference, I guess, from like Mount Sinai to the Southeast Asia or South Asian rather center? Like the type of work. Was it I guess what is the main difference between like really kind of clinical work and then the work that you were doing beforehand?
Yeah, so the work that I was doing is more like what we call case management, which is sort of like providing different resources to people within the community, and that includes mental health, but it can also include, things related to health insurance, for example, or
Mm,
related to getting food stamps,
got
or
it.
so it was like very holistic in that way. And for me, I wanted to just do like therapy,
Yeah.
and that's like the clinical work is really the therapy.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So that was like kind of like an all-encompassing thing. Like if you needed help and resources, that's where you went,
Yeah.
type of deal. Got it. So then you go to Mount Sinai and you're working there for 6 years. You still are.
So,
Um, and when did you kind of get the idea that you wanted to do some independent work, both in your private practice and also Talkspace?
yeah. So I started around, I would say private practice maybe started a little bit before Talkspace started. I've been with Talkspace for like 4 years now. And I would say that private practice maybe started like 6 months earlier. But really, what happened is that I started doing a lot of workshops in the Muslim community, at different like mosques and Islamic centers and things like that. And I was like reaching out to people. And I was like, I'd really love to come in and talk about mental health and stress management, or, wellness or parenting, whatever like was the need. And I would also like leave it to them to be like, what do you see as a need in your community? Because each place, each mosque has a community that they are connected to. And so going through that, I started to like do more and more of these workshops. And then people started asking me, oh, do you have a private practice? And so it very organically came about that I started private practice. I just kind of fell into it from that, because they were like, we want to come and see you. And I was like, okay, well then I need to like,
I need to set this up.
yeah, I can set this up, because I started hearing it more and more. And I felt like,
Um,
okay, this is like the next step and it makes sense. And then, so I started with that small private practice. And then I also like heard about Talkspace and online therapy. And it's very interesting to me. The concept seemed really interesting. And I was like, well, what would that look like for me to be able to do that and just like be able to provide that online? I think that could be really great. And so then I joined Talkspace, and I really love it. I think it's just, again, very like diverse people all around New York, and I'm able to like, help them, and I don't even have to have ever met them in person to have made that impact. And I think over this past year, it's just blown up to, people kind of really understanding how beneficial it can be, and how
yeah.
therapy is, can work. Because a lot of people felt like, oh, therapy online doesn't really work, but we've actually found differently over this past year. I mean, even for me, private practice patients, I wasn't seeing anybody in the office. I'm still not seeing anybody in the office in person. It's too risky at this point.
Yeah.
Still. So I see everybody online. I see everybody through Zoom for private practice, and then Talkspace, they have their own setup. So yeah, so it kind of just, that was sort of my expansion on going into this world of private practice and independent work.
And before the pandemic hit, were you seeing people for your private practice over Zoom as well, or was it primarily in person? What was kind of like the dynamic there?
Yeah, it was primarily in person. I preferred it to be in person. Very rarely would I do like a video session, and that would be after we'd already established an in-person therapeutic, like sort of relationship.
Hmm.
So then I would be like, okay, if there's a need, then okay, then we'll see each other over Zoom. But I always preferred the in-person.
Gotcha. And with Talkspace, what led you to starting with that? Was it because I think you said you did it like 6 months after you started your private practice? So
Mm-hmm.
were you doing your private practice and then you said I needed more patients, I needed some, you want, or did you want to just do something different? What was kind of the reason for that?
Yeah, I think part of it was a little bit of a mix, because I felt like, okay, well, I'm doing private practice, and it's nice to have that, but maybe I want to like also have a platform to be able to connect with people as well, so that even if there's like Muslims from other parts, or not necessarily just that, I have like very diverse clients on the platform as well, and but I'm like, it's nice to have my availability there as well. And if people want to work with me, then that gives them another option to be able to work with me, and they can be
Hmm.
matched with me on it, and they, and things like that. So I felt like it was just like a really good avenue to be able to do it, and I looked into it a little bit, and then it felt right, so I just kind of like dived in. And this was like 4 years ago, so it was like, I started off very small, like small caseload kind of thing. It didn't take up too much of my time. It was easy. It kind of like, took some time to just adjust to the way that you do therapy, because there's also like texting. And so I have like some clients on there for like a few years, and all they've ever done is text, and we've
Have,
just
you
texted.
guys have never seen each other in person?
Never.
Really? Wow.
Never done a video call, never, nothing.
Well,
So
I feel like, for some people, that's all you need, right? It's like, sure, maybe it would be better for them to do a video call. Who knows? But, there's going to be some people that probably never want to. And for those people, just having somebody that they can text as to give them support and advice is probably, enough.
hmm
Um, so, yeah, that's really interesting. And on Talkspace, in terms of what's more affordable for the patient, because I know private practice usually is more expensive, right?
That's true. I will say though that I've always tried to keep my rates lower than what most people have in private practice, because I've wanted it to be affordable for people. I felt like that was really my purpose in going into this, to like, for the Muslim community. And I also realized that if I'm working with them, and with that stigma and kind of opening up and having the awareness, they're not going to be willing to pay a lot of money for something like that.
Yeah.
So, over the years, obviously, like it built up, but I always have had a sliding scale, and I've always been, very like open to trying to make things work for people. So in that sense, I feel like it depends on what the person's needs are for affordability, you know.
Got you. So you'll work with people,
Yeah,
really.
I
That's
will. Yeah, I always try to make it work. And then with Talkspace, obviously they have very specific, plans, but they've started taking a lot of insurances as well. And we work with a lot of companies also. And so I know that some like employees, they get it as part of their package. And so there's some included, sessions, and they can, sign up on Talkspace through that. So it's like a benefit for them. So that has been happening a lot with Talkspace too. So it really like can be quite affordable for some people, depending on the insurance that they have or the company that they work for.
Yeah. That's interesting that the companies are doing that kind of as like a benefit now.
Mhm.
Like something that they include as being part of the company. Definitely really important.
Absolutely. Especially this past year has shown
Yeah.
us like there's so much more need for mental health.
No, definitely. Um, and in terms of COVID specifically, did you see a large uptick in demand for therapy? I only could imagine because there's like two
Oh my gosh.
that I'm sure, but it's like there was two things that happened. It was one, everybody was isolated, and two, everybody was freaking out, and people
Mhm.
were also losing their jobs. So it was like this
That's
perfect storm. I feel like almost for you know
absolutely. And then the Black Lives Matter movement,
right.
like all in the mix of it, right? Like it was like, yeah, I mean, I got to a point where I was like slammed, especially on Talkspace. I would say my caseload doubled.
Wow.
Yeah, and I kept taking people. I didn't want to say no. There, you have the ability to be able to say no after a certain amount of time, or like you could say, like, I'm not taking anybody new. But I just kept taking people for a long time because I really just wanted to like I just really wanted to help. You know what I mean? I just wanted to, I'm like, this is what I'm here for. And I
Yeah.
think the beginning of the pandemic, I did better with my own mental health. I will honestly say I felt more like I had a lot of energy and a lot of push and a lot of drive. And of course, I think like everybody else over this past year, it's been a
It's
lot
been training.
yeah, it's been very draining. I have felt very drained at certain points. Um, but I've continued doing what I can and working in whatever capacity that I can. And so I still have that. And with private practice, it's been kind of up and down, but I've tried to keep it, I guess, my numbers lower with that because
Hmm.
I also felt like that was something, that um, was also going to be too much if I was also just, taking a lot more there as well.
Yeah. And in terms of finding people for your private practice, sounds like you kind of have this really specific channel. And I don't like to use channel because I feel like I'm talking about customers. But with patients, like you've kind of found like this niche that really works, especially for them because they get to relate to you because, you're Muslim as well. Um, what, I guess, my first question is, are most of the patients that you're working with coming from like local mosques that you've gone to, kind of like you mentioned earlier from like 4 years ago? Has it kind of been the same thing, or is it and is it mostly Muslims, or is it now kind of a mix? Kind of what's the dynamic there, I guess?
Yeah, I would say I have a mix, but I would say majority I do have Muslim clients, and it's because like, and the other thing is I don't advertise my private practice at all.
It's all word of mouth.
It's all word of mouth. It's completely word of mouth. It has always been. I have never even made a Psychology Today page because I'm like,
Really?
yeah, I haven't because I was like, I actually don't need it. I mean, I have full-time job at Mount Sinai too, so I have to
Yeah.
really, right. So I don't have the capacity either. I think if like I was trying to build a full-time private practice, then probably I would. But it's really always been word of mouth, and it's always been like people that know me or people of people that know me or have seen me speak at some event. Like will reach out or they'll ask for recommendations. Like I'm on a few Facebook groups that are like primarily for like some of the Muslim communities. So it's like if anybody asks for a therapist, like somebody will just like tag me in there and write out my name. So yeah, and I'm really like only a handful of therapists that we do have based in New York that are Muslim. So it's kind of,
Yeah, you're a niche therapist and not a niche market. And I hate to use these terms, but
yeah,
yes.
I mean, yeah.
there's a lot of Muslims in New York.
Yeah.
Um so and then in terms of Mount Sinai, what does that work like? So you're doing that,
Mhm.
five, I think you said 5 days a week, right?
5 days a week. Yeah.
Wow. So if you could talk a little bit about what that was like in person and then also virtual.
Sure. Sure. I mean, in person, it's extremely intense, we work with really high risk people. A lot of our patients have either had suicide attempts or have attempted or had at least like a lot of suicidal thoughts, which has led to their hospitalization. And some of them are coming to us after an attempt or multiple attempts. So we really do work with very, very high risk people. When we were in person, it was intense in a very different way. It was longer hours. We had them for a longer time. There was a lot of, I think, managing crisis throughout the day, right? People having panic attacks and things like that on the floor. So very highly intense. And I have to say, you have to like love that to be able to do it for as long as I've been doing it.
Yeah.
And I do. I find it really exciting, and in a way to like constantly be challenged.
Yeah.
Also work with, we have a great team. We have our attending, we have psychiatrists, we have nurse practitioners, we're a group of therapists. We all kind of work together, and it's really great. I think the work environment, the way that we've always been, we're a very good team, and we work great together. And so that always makes you feel like you're not alone handling all of this, like
Yeah.
somebody so acute, and you're not alone because there's a group of people that are there to support you and help.
And I feel like that's good especially for someone like yourself who does everything else alone, it sounds like, right? Like you have a private practice which you run by yourself. You run all of your sessions on Talkspace by yourself. So to have like this separate community probably is really nice. Go ahead.
Definitely.
And then the other thing I was just going to say was, in terms of like people with those really, serious mental health conditions, or incidents with COVID, did you see a big uptick with that? Yeah.
People have been feeling a lot worse. And
Wow.
we've had ups and downs, but this, like, unfortunately, it's very sad. We've had patients that have committed suicide while
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we've had some that have attempted while they were in our program and then had to go back to the hospital. Those incidences were less frequent when we were in person, but since the pandemic, they've been more frequent.
Yeah. And do you think, well, I was going to say, do you think most of that's come from I'm sure it's a combination of things, but isolation, loss of work,
Mm-hmm.
anything specifically, or it's kind of been probably a combo of all that?
Yeah, no, it really is a combo. Like we've had some cases where, people have lost someone really close to them. There's some people that, live alone and they're more isolated. There's some people who have more interpersonal conflict with their family. And so obviously with COVID, you're staying more
Right.
at home with your family. There's been some people that have, had like loss of jobs, not been able to go back to school in person. We've had a lot of young people who were in college, and then it became remote. And then, the remote thing is also something that has been very challenging for a lot of college going kids. I mean, even younger kids, but
Yeah.
because I primarily work with like, in the hospital, I primarily work with like the young adults. And so there's a lot of people that are like, just kind of taking a break from college, or, just really struggling because they no longer have that structure.
Yeah.
They don't have anywhere to go. And so that has been something that has definitely added on to all of this. And then there's a sense of hopelessness, right? There's a lot of like the Black Lives Matter movement came into the middle. Like there was a lot of trauma. There's been a lot of trauma. People are very traumatized. There are some people who went through having COVID themselves, and then they had to really be isolated from everyone. And that, and then COVID after effects, a lot of people suffer from depression. So there's been a lot of that as well.
This year has just been insane. Insane. Yeah. Have you got the vaccine?
I did.
Nice. Which one did you get?
I got the Pfizer.
Pfizer. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Did you get the second shot?
I did. So for us, it was for the hospital, for the employees. We got it a little bit earlier. Yeah. So like I would say back in February, I got my second one. So I'm good.
So you're good to go.
Yeah, I'm good to go. I'm like ready to get on a plane. I love to travel, and that's been the thing that I've missed the most.
Mm.
Oh my goodness.
Any plans for traveling?
Yeah, I mean, I want to go this summer. I was like I'm like reading all about like Europe opening and these places opening, and I want to really go, and yet I'm a little bit scared and cautious as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are kind of feeling that way.
Yeah, it'll be. I don't know. I think maybe by the end of the summer, I think things will probably be pretty okay. But at the same time, it might be more fun to wait a little bit more because more people will be kind of out and about. But
It's true.
yeah,
No, yeah,
all
yeah.
depends what you want to
All good.
do.
Have you
But
gotten your full immunity yet?
I've not. I got shot number 1, and then I'm getting
Perfect.
today's date. I'm getting the next one in 8 days. So
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah, yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was, and I think I'm gonna get this right, Therapchino. What?
Therapeutic.
Therapchino. Yeah, I thought that was a really cute name, honestly. So, and so this is your Instagram, and do you just post like different like mental health awareness like tips and stuff on that, and like kind of what do you use that for?
Yeah, so I actually this name came about from my love of coffee and therapy, and I just kind of like melted both words together, so it became Therapeuchino. But it really started why I came up with this name was because I started a podcast. Uh,
Ah,
yeah, I did in 2019. And it's something I've always wanted to do. When I was younger, it was more like radio, and I was like, I want to be a radio show host.
yeah,
so so that didn't really happen. But now I was like, well, I could always do a podcast and it would be really fun, and I know that you can speak to how fun it can be.
yeah.
And so then I was like, you know what, I need to just do it. And I'm not tech savvy at all, but I had to figure out all of the logistics. And before COVID, I actually used to go in, I rented out like the studio space, and I used to go in and do the episodes, and it was really fun. It was a different kind of experience.
That's awesome. And what so is it's all therapy talk, right?
Yeah, it's all related to mental health. A lot of like the work that I do is about destigmatizing mental health and providing like coping strategies and skills and tips. And my Instagram is like kind of based off of where the podcast started. And I wanted to just kind of like, give people these like little things to just kind of like pick up and like reflect on or be helpful for. And so but on my podcast I also have people like come on that are experts in different fields related to mental health. So I've had like couples therapists come on. One of my old coworkers, she does like forest therapy. I had her
She does
talk
what
about
therapy?
forest, like a walk through the forest.
Forest therapy. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I know. I was like,
Who knew?
I know. It's just like super interesting.
Yeah.
And and then I've had some psychiatrists come and talk about like the medication piece of therapy, which is, I mean, mental health, which is another thing that people are very wary of. So I feel like that's also helpful. So like, yeah, different topics I have people come and speak about, and it's usually an interesting conversation. I feel like I learn things to just hear other people's perspectives and their expertise.
Definitely. Yeah. I think having something like a podcast, having some like media platform / format of that you can display your knowledge on is like great and really, really powerful, especially for something like, what you do. Because there are, at the end of the day, so many people that won't go to the hospital, they won't see you there, or they can't afford Talkspace or private practice. So that is awesome. That's really great. And I think there's a decent amount of, because I spoke to one other therapist who was just going to starting one recently, and then
Okay.
I like looked it up, and there's a decent amount out there, so there's a lot of resources for people, which is nice.
Yeah.
Um, so what is it? What is it? If you could spell it out, that would be great. Yep.
THERAPPUCCINO.
Awesome. And is that, where can you listen to that? Is that on like
Yeah, that's on Apple. That's on iTunes. iTunes.
iTunes?
Yeah, and I have a link in my bio with the link to to the podcast.
Okay, awesome. I will make sure to include all of that in this. Otherwise, Bisma, I appreciate it. Bisma.
Yeah.
Apologies. I appreciate it, and thank you for coming on. And I wish you luck with everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. You're so fun to talk to. And
Thank
so,
you.
yeah, it's
How are
definitely
you?
a great time. Thank you. Thank you
This
so
is
much. And
when two podcasts collide, it works out.
right, exactly. It's like a
Yes.
crossover. I love it.
Awesome. All
And good to
righty.
see you too with everything.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Bisma.
All right.
See you, everybody. Peace.